Chair, I now recognize the gentlelady from Arizona, Representative Lesko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank the entire panel for coming here and educating us on this issue. I specifically want to say thank you to Mr. Franquist, who came from Arizona. And while I was in the state Senate, I always had good dealings with your agency, and I think they do a good job. I think it's really important. I think everybody cares about air quality. I don't think there's a question about that. I mean, my daughter had asthma. My grandchildren have sometimes need to use an inhaler as well. But I really think we need to balance that with reasonable measures that we have influence over. So what I heard here today is a lot of it has to do, or at least a large part of it along the border, has to do with pollution that comes over from other countries. I do have a question for Mr. Franquist. Mr. Franquist, what changes would you propose to the current national ambient air quality standards process to improve the way that it's implemented in the states?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I think first of all, I would start to take a look at the 5-year review cycle. Every 5 years, EPA has the opportunity to take a look at the NAAQS. It seems to be pretty consistent that NAAQS goes up every single year, and that's challenging for areas that have to put in state implementation plans. You have 3 years to do that. It seems by the time we implement just the beginning stages of those state implementation plans, we're right back chasing the tiger's tail again and having to come up with new measures. So I think that's one place I would certainly start. Again, one area that we've been working closely with Senator Flake on is removing some of the non-attainment new source review offsets and lowest achievable emission requirements for those international transport areas. It seems to me if you can make a strong demonstration that those areas are not exceeding the standard, but for emissions outside this country, and I'll go back and sharpen my pencil and make sure that the Lynn study is 65% increase. What I do know is the U.S. EPA's modeling said 83% of emissions in southern Arizona are from outside of this country. And so we do need to take a strong look at how those areas with 19% living below the poverty line can find access to good work and therefore good health care. And so, again, I think relieving those areas of layer and offset requirements would be another good place to start.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I have one more question. Thank you. Mr. Franquist, as a follow-up, what has the EPA currently done, or what could they continue to do to help the states?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we're still awaiting the implementation rule for ozone. Under the past administration, there was a proposal that these international transport areas would be required to implement reasonable available control measures before the area was reviewed under international transport demonstrations, which simply means that these areas that are shown not to be contributing to those issues would have to go above and beyond, put control measures in place to control emissions that are coming from somewhere else outside this country. So as we look to the EPA to finalize the implementation rule, I think certainly one area would be not requiring RACM for international transport areas.
Thank you, sir. I yield back my time.
The gentlelady yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman.